ISIS now issuing a warning, calling for bigger and bitter attacks following the bombings in Brussels yesterday.
So what can the United States and other westernized countries do to combat this growing threat? Majid Nawaz is a former Islamic extremist and the author of the book Radical, My Journey Out of Islamic Extremism. He knows the mindset behind this kind of terror and joins us right now live from London. Majid, good morning to you. Thank you very much. What's your headline about what happened in Brussels yesterday?
Well, unfortunately, this is the latest in a long line of attacks whereby the global jihadist insurgency has hit home in Europe once again. We are witnessing something akin to a jihadist guerrilla war playing out in Europe. But we must remember, this is just in this month alone, it's the 8th of 7 other attacks that have happened across the world. 2 in Pakistan, jihadist attacks I refer to. 2 in Pakistan, 2 in Turkey, 1 in Ivory Coast, 1 in Mali, and 1 in Nigeria. So what we're witnessing, actually on a global level, is something unprecedented. I call it the global jihadist insurgency, and it's in fact an ideological struggle as well as a military struggle.
Yeah, when we talk about radical Islam, we need to get into the minds of these terrorists and find out why they're doing this. It's a mindset, and we've read so many articles and seen so many pictures of how they're trained and brainwashed at a very young age. Now, I know you were not a terrorist. You say that you were an Islamic extremist. What changed your mind? How did you change, and what got you out of being an extremist?
My story is peculiar in that I spent 5 years as an Amnesty International adopted prisoner of conscience in Egypt under Hosni Mubarak, as you've correctly referred to, as an Islamist. So we weren't involved in any violence, but we were certainly revolutionary in our thinking. And I changed over living, actually up close, between the years 2002 to 2006, with senior jihadists and Islamists in Egypt, some of the who's who of the Islamist scene back then. And something similar to kind of George Orwell's Animal Farm, by living up close to them, I was living the jihadist version of Animal Farm. I got to see how these people were living up close, and I became incredibly disillusioned with this ideology. Back then, I used to hear conversations about how they would enslave people when the caliphate was resurrected, and I eventually came to the conclusion that I wanted nothing to do with that. And of course, with hindsight, I'm delighted that I did. I now spend my life challenging that ideology.
So you're the perfect person. Real quickly, what do we do? You don't have to be PC in your answer. Just tell us, how do we fix this problem?
Well, of course, we've got to identify the problem, and that's the Islamist ideology. We've got to be able to name it, and then we've got to be able to challenge it, both ideologically and militarily. And I fear that currently, with the president's policy, that's simply just not happening.
You're right about that.
Majid
He's reluctant to do that.
Thank you for being with us. Some insightful information. If you want to get into the mind of what the Islamic extremist really thinks, we need to read your book. It's Radical, My Journey Out of Islamist Extremists. Thank you so much for choosing us this morning. We appreciate that.
A pleasure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.